I welcome you all to today's class by Advanced English Language Academy. This is Yasin, your English language instructor. Today we're not going to talk about grammar or linguistics. We're not going to be talking about difficult things. I'm just going to help you how to ask questions, because it's also very important that you know how to ask questions. Okay. For example, when my students come to my academy, I don't allow them. I don't let them speak their own their mother tongue. For example, our mother tongue is Pashto, so I don't allow my students to speak Pashto in my academy, and other academies also do the same thing. So the main question is how well the student asks the question. For example, he's a newcomer and he doesn't understand, so how will he ask question? Or let's suppose, forget about academy, you want to ask someone a question because there are so many platforms. You want to ask someone on Facebook or other internet platforms. So how will you ask question? For example, you don't know the meaning of a word, you don't know the pronunciation of a word, and there are many things that you don't know. So how will you ask? And one more thing, for example, I'm your English teacher, not English language teacher or not English language instructor, only English teacher. So how will you ask me questions? So for example, you see a new word and you don't know about its pronunciation, okay? You know about the spelling, but you don't know the pronunciation of that word. So you'll say, sir, how do you, or how to pronounce? Then you'll tell the spelling of that word, like B-O-O-K. Sir, how to pronounce B-O-O-K? So then the teacher will tell you, that's book. How to pronounce any word, right? So for example, you know about the pronunciation of a word, you know about the spelling of a word, but you don't know about its meaning. So you'll say, sir, what does then that word, whatever, for example, I've written okra, and you can ask about any word. What does abbreviation mean? What does vegetable mean? What does classroom mean? What does this mean? So the word that you don't know, the word that's meaning you don't know, you just add that, what does, and then that word and mean. What does that mean, right? And for example, you don't know about the spelling of a word, and you have heard, you have, for example, your teacher has told you, your teacher tells you something, your teacher pronounces a word, and you don't know about the spelling of that word. So how will you ask? Just simple, sir, how do you spell, or how to spell? And then you will tell that word, sir, how to spell, or how do you spell grammar? If you want to ask about someone's name spelling, so you can say, how do you spell your name? How do you spell your name? Okay? And if you want to ask about a word spelling, so you will say, how do you, or how to spell, and then that word. What is, for example, you know a word and your native language and your mother tongue. For example, I'm a Pathan. So this is called what in Pashto. I'm not going to speak Pashto, okay? But it's for example, it's a bottle, right? And it's a bottle, let's suppose. I know it's Pashto meaning, but I don't know what is it called in English. I know this thing. For example, this is what? For example, this is a bird. I know that, okay? But I don't know what is it called in English. So I'll say, what is then that thing, what you are going to ask about, called in English? For example, what is bottle called in English? What is purse called in English? Now, instead of purse and bottle, you can use the word in your mother tongue or in your native tongue, in your native language. In your native language, you can use in this structure what is then the word. For example, you don't know about as I told you, you don't know what is that thing called in English. You know about its Pashto. Tell Pashto. Just here you can use Pashto, you can use Hindi, you can use Urdu, you can use German or any language. And for example, you want to ask the whole sentence. You don't know about, for example, you know something, a sentence in Pashto, Urdu, or any other language, your native language, but you don't know how to say that in English. So then you'll say, so how to say in English, then the whole sentence in your native language. How to say in English? I'm not going to speak Pashto or Urdu or any other language, but you should just how to say in English, and then that sentence can be the whole sentence can be in your mother tongue or in your native language. So the teacher will tell you, for example, how do you pronounce B-O-O-K? Teacher will tell you it's book. What does okra mean? It means that. And how do you spell grammar? So the teacher will tell you the spelling of grammar. And what is this called in English? So the teacher will say it's called marker. And how to say in English? So the teacher will say, for example, you ask about your health. So you ask about health. So the teacher will say, it means I'm fine. Thank you. Wish you all